You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Today's sponsor, Rapid7, has an irresistible invitation for you CISOs and security practitioners out there. A free 2-day virtual summit. The subject? Preemptive security. Join the Global Cybersecurity Summit on May 12th and 13th from wherever you like. A-list speakers will show you how organizations are disrupting attacks before they can blowtorch your day. You'll see how exposure management, MDR, and AI together let you make the decisive move. Registration is open at rapid7.brighttalk.com. The Supreme Court weighs geofence warrants. Iran leans toward quieter cyber ops. Researchers unpack Fast 16 sabotage malware. Microsoft tracks an Outlook outage. Snow malware moves deep inside networks. Itron reports a breach. SMS blasters hit Canada. Italy extradites an accused hacker to the U.S. We've got your Monday business brief. Our guest is Mick Coady, Field CTO of Elisity, on how hospitals can best defend against ransomware attacks. And Meta's relentless watchful eye turns inward. It's Monday, April 27th, 2026. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. Happy Monday. It is great to have you with us. The U.S. Supreme Court is considering whether geofence warrants violate the Fourth Amendment's protections against unreasonable searches. These warrants are a law enforcement technique that identifies people near crime scenes using tech company location data. In the case before the court, police used Google's location history data to identify suspects after a 2019 Virginia bank robbery, ultimately arresting one man while also sweeping in innocent bystanders. Supporters argue users who opted into location tracking reduced their expectation of privacy and that such warrants can help solve crimes efficiently. Critics counter that geofencing resembles a digital dragnet, allowing searches across millions of accounts without individualized suspicion. The court must decide whether geofence requests count as constitutional searches and whether voluntary stored location data forfeits privacy rights. The ruling could shape how digital records are treated under the Constitution and define limits on law enforcement access to large-scale location data. U.S. officials and cybersecurity experts say recent warnings about Iranian-linked cyber threats are more likely to signal opportunistic intrusions than large-scale disruptive attacks on critical infrastructure. Former NSA Director Tim Hogg and incident response expert Kevin Mandia noted that Iran's cyber activity typically relies on exploiting basic security weaknesses, such as stolen credentials and social engineering, then amplifying the impact through information operations. A reported incident involving medical device company Stryker, where attackers used legitimate access to disable devices, illustrates this pattern. Experts expect future activity to target organizations connected to the United States or Israel rather than broad infrastructure systems. For defenders, the key risk remains identity security gaps and weak authentication controls, suggesting that routine protections like widespread multi-factor authentication remain the most effective near-term defense. Researchers at SentinelOne have uncovered new details about Fast 16, a previously mysterious piece of malware dating to 2005 that appears designed for subtle, long-term sabotage of scientific and engineering calculations. Unlike destructive wiper malware or overt industrial attacks like Stuxnet, FAST16 silently altered outputs in simulation software, potentially causing faulty research results or real-world equipment failures while remaining difficult to detect. The malware spread across networks and targeted applications including MOHID, PKPM, and especially LS-DYNA, a physics simulation tool used in aerospace, engineering, and nuclear-related research. Evidence suggests LS-DYNA was used by Iranian scientists linked to nuclear weapons development, leading researchers to hypothesize FAST16 may have been an early cyber effort to disrupt Iran's program before Stuxnet. Experts say the discovery pushes back the timeline of sophisticated state-sponsored cyber sabotage and highlights how covert manipulation of technical data, rather than system destruction, has long been part of advanced cyber operations. This morning, Microsoft was investigating an ongoing Outlook.com outage causing intermittent sign-in failures and unexpected account sign-outs for some users. Since the issue began, thousands of reports have surfaced, with many users encountering too many requests errors and mailbox access problems. Microsoft says client sign-in interactions may be contributing to the disruption, but has not identified a root cause or disclosed affected regions or user numbers. The company classified the incident as service degradation rather than a full outage. Threat group UNC 6692 is using social engineering to deploy a custom malware suite called Snow to steal sensitive data after gaining deep network access. According to Google's Mandiant researchers, attackers begin with email bombing campaigns, then impersonate IT help desk staff via Microsoft Teams to trick victims into installing a fake spam-blocking patch. The download deploys components including the Snowbelt browser extension, the Snow Glaze tunneler, and the Snow Basin backdoor, enabling stealthy command execution, persistence, and data exfiltration. After initial compromise, the attackers conduct internal reconnaissance, move laterally using stolen credentials, and extract Active Directory data from domain controllers. They exfiltrated registry hives and credential databases using LimeWire. Mandiant reports the activity supports long-term access and large-scale credential theft across compromised environments. Utility technology provider Itron disclosed that an unauthorized third party accessed portions of its internal systems in a cyber attack detected on April 13th. The company activated its incident response plan, notified law enforcement, and engaged external advisors to investigate and contain the activity, which has since been blocked with no observed follow-up intrusion. Itron says the incident caused no material disruption to business operations and did not affect customers, though the investigation remains ongoing. The Washington-based firm supports electricity, water, and gas infrastructure across 7,700 customers in 100 countries, highlighting its role in critical services. No ransomware group has claimed responsibility, and Itron expects insurance to cover a significant portion of response-related costs. Toronto police have arrested 3 men and laid 44 charges in what they describe as Canada's first investigation involving SMS blasters, devices that mimic legitimate cell towers to send fraudulent text messages to nearby phones. The suspects allegedly used the mobile systems from vehicles across Toronto to distribute smishing messages that redirected victims to fake websites designed to steal personal information. Police estimate tens of thousands of devices connected to the blasters over several months, causing more than 13 million network disruptions and potentially interfering with access to emergency services. The investigation, called Project Lighthouse, began in November of last year and involved multiple law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, and telecommunications providers. Authorities say the case highlights a growing threat to both public safety and financial security. Italy's government has decided to extradite Chinese national Zhu Zhiwei to the United States on hacking-related charges, following an Italian court ruling supporting the request. U.S. prosecutors allege Zhu stole COVID-19 research and conducted cyber operations on behalf of the Chinese government, though he denies the accusations. Zhu was arrested in Italy in 2025 at Washington's request and remains in custody pending formal extradition steps. Italian officials have not publicly commented on the decision. The move could help ease diplomatic tensions between Italy and the United States amid broader disagreements over foreign policy issues. Turning to our Monday business brief, Israeli detection and response startup Artemis has emerged from stealth with $70 million in seed and Series A funding, led by Felicis, with participation from First Round Capital and Brightmind. They're going to expand engineering, research, and go-to-market teams as enterprise demands grow. Meanwhile, Japanese AI security firm Almor raised $1.25 million in seed funding from Genesia vendors, DualBridge Capital, and N2K Innovation Fund to advance research and product development. Several acquisitions also highlight consolidation in the cybersecurity sector. ServiceNow completed its acquisition of cyber exposure management firm Armis to extend security visibility into operational environments. Nexus IT acquired IT consultancy Imagis to expand services nationally. Boost LLC acquired Rimstorm to strengthen CMMC Level 2 compliance support for defense contractors, and Cloud Computing acquired UK-based MSSP Innovate IT to support international expansion. Be sure to check out our weekly business briefing, part of CyberWire Pro. You can find that on our website. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Mick Coady from Elisity on how hospitals can best defend against ransomware attacks. And Meta's relentlessly watchful eye turns inward. Stay with us. Most environments trust far more than they should, and attackers know it. ThreatLocker solves that by enforcing default deny at the point of execution. With ThreatLocker Allow listing, you stop unknown executables cold. With ring fencing, you control how trusted applications behave. And with ThreatLocker DAC, Defense Against Configurations, you get real assurance that your environment is free of misconfigurations and clear visibility into whether you meet compliance standards. ThreatLocker is the simplest way to enforce zero-trust principles without the operational pain. It's powerful protection that gives CISOs real visibility, real control, and real peace of mind. ThreatLocker makes zero-trust attainable, even for small security teams. See why thousands of organizations choose ThreatLocker to minimize alert fatigue, stop ransomware at the source, and regain control over their environments. Schedule your demo at threatlocker.com/N2K today. When it comes to mobile application security, good enough is a risk. A recent survey shows that 72% of organizations reported at least one mobile application security incident last year, and 92% of responders reported threat levels have increased in the past 2 years. GuardSquare delivers the highest level of security for your mobile apps without compromising performance, time to market, or user experience. Discover how GuardSquare provides industry-leading security for your Android and iOS apps at www.guardsquare.com. Mick Coady is field CTO at Elisity. I recently caught up with him to discuss how hospitals can best defend against ransomware attacks.
Dave, so I would say, south of the Mason-Dixon line per se, you'll find more rural option clinic type environments where they have to provide a bigger bandwidth of care. From there, from the clinical, I'll call it the smaller, we'll call it doc in the box type style thing you'll have. From there, you'll get to the regional size. From there, you'll go super regional, which may be multi-state. And then from there, yes, you get to the largest players across the country.
And how does that break down in terms of the haves and the have-nots when it comes to cybersecurity?
Unfortunately, they have to kind of they all have to kind of atone for meeting some basic functions on clinical care, right? So the rules sit in place that obviously thou shalt do no harm, but that's all in place. But at the end of the day, they have to meet the basic requirements of what the HIPAA rules are. They're in the middle of a rewrite, and new versions of them are coming out, or there have been versions of what they are about to look like. So at any given stage of the hospital, they've allowed them to break down what they can or cannot afford to get those things completed. So basic bare minimums around what your security standards should be, how you would meet the privacy of any given patient record. Those kind of things are table stakes, I would say, Dave. But then as you get into the bigger environments where you are managing, millions of medical records or particular styles of clinical care, research and/or different parts and pieces, you are required to, meet the ultimate standards that are required, I'd say, for a larger organization, no different than a bank.
And because of this unique combination of elements that hospitals have, that puts a bit of a target on their backs when it comes to these threat actors, yes?
Yes, does indeed. Yes, absolutely. And I think some of the parts that you've seen, there's been some recent public things that have just happened, obviously, as you're well aware, last week while I was actually sitting at a healthcare conference. One of the ones that was announced that occurred at a large manufacturer. Another one has occurred a couple of months back at another hospital system down in the south. Those things are occurring regardless. It depends on the vectors of attack, of what they're looking for and what they're doing with it. As it's been well and widely acknowledged that medical records are worth almost 5 or 6 times what a traditional financial record would be, based upon the content that would be served up in a medical jacket of information. So it kind of the attributes of why you would go after them are much more rich in content. But there's also the actors who are out there looking for nefarious pieces of activity around genomic research, or looking for advantages of stealing IP that certain hospitals in the United States would have, that would be bleeding edge, that would be supporting greater, better clinical care for all of us, that they're playing shiny objects. So they're going after medical records to do this. But in essence, as we peel away the layers, you'll find out that they actually were embedded for 6 to 9 months, and they were looking at other things within the network that we were unaware of, and we kind of blamed it all on, hey, they just dumped 1.2 million medical records out. But actually, in fact, what they were really doing is that they spent 6 months looking at your genomic research.
Well, in the work that you do, what sort of things do you find out there in terms of how well prepared these organizations are?
It varies, obviously, based upon how you would talk about structure and size. I don't deny that I don't think in healthcare they are doing their very best with the least. And I say that because I've served other capacities and other industry verticals along the way in the energy sector and other sectors where there's more of an abundance of resource, both human and monetarily. And in certain cases, they sometimes are no more advanced than where we are in healthcare. Healthcare has always had, the limited margins of what they do. Most of the environments we are talking about are non-for-profit. So they're trying to deliver clinical care with the patient to pretty much to the forefront of what they want to do, and trying to deliver a great experience for any person, particularly when we arrive, right? As you well know yourself, you refer to yourself as you go through the glass doors of a clinic or a hospital, you're sitting in there, you're not in your greatest form. So the question is, how do we provide great but secure clinical care with the least amount of resources that most other industries just don't seem to have? So I would say, in a broader answer, I would say it varies. But I think in the greater good, everyone is doing the very best of what they can. I don't think anybody is operating in a highly negligent manner, as maybe we would have seen maybe a decade plus ago. I think everyone is literally trying to get things completed that matter most for expediency of care, both for the physician and for the patient.
Can you walk us through what happens when a hospital finds itself victimized here? A facility gets hit with ransomware. How do people spring into action to deal with that?
Yeah, I would say an awful lot of it is based upon the experience, the size of the environment. So, if you're dealing with this, and I think there was an episode recently on a program referenced on HBO called The Pit, and actually I think it was episode 8, and they were talking about it, but they actually kind of demonstrated some good and the bad and the ugly of what will go on. Most of it was fairly accurate. Some pieces and parts, which immediately it would come to mind, is that if you're in the middle of a ransomware attack, you're not doing patient intake, right? I mean, most things would be unavailable. You can get away with doing isolatory type work, which would mean doing traditional patient monitoring with vitals. You would be able to look at some basic monitors if they were not linked going back to the workstation. That requires much more heavy resource utilization of what the nurses and the clinicians are doing in general. But overall, imaging would be available, pharmacology would be available, but you're going to paper, Dave, to kind of make it all work. And then you're trying to do what you have in the building. One of the things that would absolutely, and I'll say it again, is that you would not have patient intake. I think in that particular episode, they were still trying to take patients in. That most likely would never happen. So that's kind of like the varying degrees. But if you've done, which we were kind of discussing last week, is that we released a survey with the HIMSS broader organization. We had talked about what does that look like from tabletop exercises. How many times are you doing those a year? Are you even doing them? If you do them, who's involved from a stakeholder perspective? It's going to have an awful lot of people from, say, the Office of Compliance and Counsel. You'll have the CEO, CFO, there's a financial responsibility. And then you'll have the leaders, both in the IT side, the clinical side, that will be involved in running those to make sure if we flip to paper and we're running, we can still run the hospital effectively over a period of time till the ransomware is kind of either completed or you recover from it in any particular given minute.
Well, based on your experience here, how would you recommend that the folks who are responsible for the security of these organizations set their priorities? How do they choose where to aim those limited resources?
Yeah, it has to go back to clinical care. I don't believe, other than one particular instance we can point to that unfortunately happened in the UK, where there was loss of life. Most of it would be absolutely securing patient information and securing the patient themselves, so no harm shall come to them. We're an extension of that oath that the clinical people take. That it's our job to make sure that we don't have that kind of a situation occur where there's a loss of life. I think that's the highest level of priority. And then secondarily is to how, through patient intake to discharge, how do we continue to operate as a clinical environment that allows the patient to go through there in their worst of times, that allows them to have a good experience, regardless if certain parts of the technologies are not available. How do we get them in and out through the system with great care and keep them safe? So, I mean, that is the ultimate job, I think, of anybody when a hospital system is under duress. That is the major, I would call it risk, and what's basically to the forefront of anybody delivering care.
I often ask folks, what should someone who is a consumer of these services look for in terms of making sure that they feel though their data is being well protected. But is this a case where the level of regulation is such that really those basics are taken care of?
I would say yes. That's a good. It's kind of putting me on the spot, but I would say in the grander scheme of things, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the 101 of anybody, whether it's running 56 outpatient clinics that are operating between 7 to 7 on any given day, in either a broader city environment or in a rural environment or in a state-based environment, your number one objective is to absolutely keep the patient patient data private. I think everything else when it comes to clinical care, of how you use advancements in technology to expedient levels of how you deliver care, that's great, just so long as you're not introducing risk along the way. And what unfortunately occurs, and the capabilities of the outside actors have, definitely, grown in sophistication, where med devices themselves have now become an angle or a vector of attack because they are sitting on the network. They, probably 20 years ago, an imaging machine may or may not have been on the network. It would have been connected to a standby server that sat there. And, all of us have done MRIs to some greater degree, or X-rays, where it, spun up a CD-ROM. And you would take that CD-ROM to the physician where you were referred to, and then they would either diagnose you what needs to happen next. So I think as we have all gone online in a greater way, it opens up apertures of risk, but it also opens up aperture of greater care, better care, and expedient care. So that's the balance ultimately, Dave, is that you're opening yourself up for these great advancements. And with that comes better responsibilities.
That's Mick Coady, Field CTO at Elisity. And now a word from our sponsor, the Center for Cyber Health and Hazard Strategies, also known as CHHS. Looking for a graduate degree that will give you an edge on your professional career? Earn a Master of Science in Law at University of Maryland Carey School of Law. This part-time 2-year online graduate degree program is designed for experienced professionals to understand laws and policies that impact your industry. Learn from CHHS faculty who are experts in their field. No GRE required. Learn how you can master the law without a JD at law.umaryland.edu.
Right now at the Home Depot, shop Spring Black Friday savings and get up to 40% off, plus up to $500 off select appliances from top brands like Samsung. Get a fridge with 0 clearance hinges, so the doors open fully even in tighter spaces in your kitchen. And laundry that saves you time, like an all-in-one washer-dryer that can run a full load in just 68 minutes. Shop Spring Black Friday savings, plus get free delivery on appliance purchases of $998 or more at the Home Depot. Offer valid April 9th through April 29th, U.S. only. See store online for details.
And finally, Meta, long known for tracking user behavior to refine ads and engagement, is now turning similar observation inward by deploying monitoring software on employees' work computers. According to reports from Reuters and Business Insider, the Model Capability Initiative will capture keystrokes, mouse activity, and periodic screenshots from work-related tools like Gmail, GChat, VS Code, and Meta's internal apps to help train AI agents that better understand how people use computers. CTO Andrew Bosworth reportedly framed the effort as a step toward a future where AI agents handle routine tasks while humans supervise. Meta joins peers like Anthropic, OpenAI, and Microsoft in pursuing agent-driven workflows. Still, there's a certain symmetry in Meta staff experiencing the sort of data collection the company helped normalize, especially as its vision of personal superintelligence arrives with fewer assurances about personal workspace privacy.
Welcome to Facebook.
And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment on Jason and Brian's show every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's lead producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our contributing host is Maria Vermazis. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Hey, business owners, the NFL season is a big revenue driver. Now there's a smarter way to get ready. EverPass is the only authorized commercial platform for NFL Sunday Ticket, delivering every live out-of-market regular season Sunday afternoon game. Lock in the best offer now with up to 40% off, saving up to $2,500. For the first time, you can pay over 9 months. Get up to 6 free devices and a free bar kit. Sign up by April 27th. Visit everpass.com. Limited time offer. Terms apply.